Hello and welcome to the pod. I'm Tom West Coast Kennedy, joined by Matt D12 Carvalho, Dan East Coast Lozier, and Chris Dirty South Palumbo. We are the Groovy Guys. This is Crate Expectations, the podcast for record collectors and music enthusiasts. Groovy Guys, how are we? Everyone enjoying the festive season?
Yeah, living the dream.
Absolutely.
Feeling jolly.
Well, it's great to bring you back here. I know we said we were done for the year, but we have one little piece of unfinished business, and I'm excited for this. This is a very special bonus episode to wrap up 2021. This is our year in review, and we are talking about our favourite album of 2021, our favourite vintage record purchase, and our favourite contemporary record purchase. Chris, with the man bun, I'm going straight to you. Hit me. Favourite vintage, favourite contemporary, and then favourite album of the year. What do you got?
Okay, so vintage was easy. Vintage came down to two for me, but it was an easy pick. And the way I chose all of my albums this year were based off of how much time it spent on the turntable. I ignored Spotify. I ignored everything else because I was just getting bogged down with all the numbers. And I was like, what spent the most time on my turntable? So that was easy. Curtis Mayfield was my vintage.
Nice.
Roots. I talked about it in the past.
Yeah.
Killer album. It honestly, when we bought this, it lived on the turntable easily 3-4 weeks without like it would go back in the sleeve. It wouldn't even go on the shelf. Like it would just sit next to the turntable. Nice. I get home and I'd put it back on. I was bad for a week in between there. It didn't even leave the turntable. It just sat.
Nice.
And I know some of you
discovered.
Sorry.
I was gonna say I love how you discovered him, and he just stayed on your turntable all year. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's hands down. That was easy. My runner-up was Out of Exile because Tom put that in my head, and when that lived on the turntable for an easy 2 weeks.
I just constantly. That.
Did your dad bought you a copy of that, right?
Yeah, he got it at an antique store. So not even a record store. He was wandering through an antique store, and he picked that one up along with another Curtis Mayfield record that's pretty good, but not as good as Roots there.
Very nice.
Yeah, and then
contemporary.
My contemporary was going to be my album of the year, but it came out in 2020. I was real disappointed, and it's the Gimmick album, and it's amazing. It's the No Frills Holland State of Mind record, which is
I love it.
Which has got this beautiful banana on it, and it's a gimmick, but
tell us more about this.
Wait.
There's a parental advisory?
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Sorry, it's not a parental advisory. It says, "Thank you for hauling."
Hashtag holler.
Yeah.
No frills. Hashtag holler.
This is essentially this is released by a supermarket chain.
Yes, this is a supermarket album.
Cool or gimmick?
This is, I would argue, cool because it is a gimmick.
Cool gimmick.
It's
a yellow vinyl, isn't it?
Oh, it's banana yellow.
Banana yellow.
Gimmick.
Look at it's got bananas on the lid.
How beautiful that looks.
Yeah, it's the same color as the Voyager 1. We got the album names: Banana, Bag It Up, Holland State of Mind, 88-cent sale, Spicy. Spicy's amazing. It just talks about spices.
Oh my god!
Is it rap?
Yeah, it's like hip hoppy, R&B, some stuff, spoken word.
Was it for a charitable purpose? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just some marketing ploy, and it worked.
It worked on you.
This is my favorite one. It's just called "Call Us by Our Names" because No Frills. The way it works is it's called so and so's No Frills. So if you if you buy they just
Shout out
literally
to V's
list
No Frills.
They just list out every No Frills owner. So like
Nice.
to a beat. So it's just like Dennis and Richard, Lori and Michael and Chris and Jeff. It just goes on. Like the whole song is just them.
Love it.
Going down, and it ends with like Jerry and Jeb's No Frills. And that's like, it's amazing.
That's amazing.
It's
the inside of cover,
bad, it's good.
just full of cakes. It's I wouldn't even argue it's bad. It's just good.
Nice.
It was $19, free shipping.
Do you work for No Frills?
No, but I should because it's man.
I was just gonna ask, like, where did you pick it up? How much did it cost? And you know all of it.
Yeah, like, and it came. I ordered another one for a buddy of mine for Christmas, and it came in 2 days. Like, they're on the ball. Big fan.
Damn.
Yeah, so that would have been my album of the year. My album of the year, I chose Matt Mays from Burnside with Love. It's a live album. I chose it solely. It lived on our turntable all through the spring because we missed live concerts so much.
Great choice.
And that's why I picked it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
Great choice.
Yeah, he switches up the songs. He switches up the style. I also learned that maybe, I said this earlier, that I wasn't into country.
Yeah.
I think I'm into country.
You are. Of course you are. You told us you don't like country, and then I put this on Spotify, and I was like, Chris, you just don't know what country is.
No, I don't think I do.
Because you
I don't
definitely
think,
like country.
okay, because in my pile here, also Willie Nelson's Stardust, which you guys told me to get, was like second on Spotify. My number one listened to band is called the Barrel Boys, which I'm in like the 0.1% of listeners, which is like a folky country twangy band. And then Willie Nelson's Christmas album has been going since December 1st. So yeah, boys, I think I'm a country fan.
Nice.
You just have to understand the different subgenres in country. Right?
So I don't like
you
pop
think
country.
of country and you're like, it's pop country.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't like that.
The classic stuff that you hear on the radio. And then when you really dive into country, like I love old country and Western stuff like John Hartford, Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, stuff like that, right?
I'm in.
And
you're right.
That stuff's great. And a lot of indie bands right now are very inspired by old country, right? And it's a lot of like old folk country rock.
So you guys put me onto the rural Alberta advantage?
That was me.
See, Chris, you introduced me to a modern act that are country. They're old country, but...
I would argue they're indie, but I guess they have country roots, right?
They have old country roots.
Like Blue Rodeo, I guess. Yeah, they all have these country roots. Blue Rodeo put out an album just recently too. That I haven't given it a good listen, but that's going to give Album of the Year a run for its money.
So tell us a bit more about this Matt Mays album, because I'm not a huge Matt Mays listener, but I really like what I hear from him.
So this is like all his stuff. So he put a bunch of his songs, but he switches them up, so it actually feels like you're at a concert. It's
a live recording,
he changes,
right?
Yeah, and he changes the style. So like Cocaine Cowgirl is probably his most favorite famous song. But in this, they completely changed the way it's played, which to me it felt fresh and new, and why I could include it on this sort of thing.
Nice.
I love that about this record.
Yeah, like Chase the Light is one of the ones where he keeps very similar, but his passion comes through. The first time my wife listened to this, I put it on. She actually like started bawling on Chase the Light because you could feel like she missed. And then of course she got me all teary eyed, but you could feel the passion coming through on the album, which is really hard to do. So yeah, if you haven't, this is a good intro to Matt Mays. You can hear his passion, his love, and his just like overall just like energy come through the record. And yeah, that was a good pickup. Check out Matt Mays, one of my favorites.
Beautiful.
Another great can rock.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
East Coast.
Very nice. Matt, we might jump to you. I'm excited to hear your picks. What do you got? Give me vintage, contemporary, album of the year.
All right, so vintage.
How do you pick?
Yeah.
Honestly, I was looking back and I was like, okay, I almost have to do like a complete recall of what I picked up this year. But things that kind of ring off right off the top of the head. So vintage, Wings, Venus and Mars. That is taking the cake for sure. And that was a reco from, I know the group, but Chris, the day that you mentioned it, I was like, oh, I got to pick that up. And sure enough, within a couple weeks, I did. So taking that one for vintage.
That's a must-have.
That's an essential.
It really is.
Collection.
Oh, man. I went back and listened to it. And I was like, I forgot how many good songs are on this record. It's one, you drop the needle, let it play, flip the record, let it play.
Absolutely. Turn it over and do it again.
Yeah, and do it again. Yeah, actually, I think the first day that I came into the house, I must have played through it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, you have to. Love it.
Yeah.
Good pickup, Matt.
Thank you. Are we going contemporary?
Yeah.
Okay, my favorite contemporary pickup for the year is going to be Third Eye Blind, their first record.
Wow.
And I
Nice.
just picked that up. I
Yeah.
was so ecstatic to get it because I've been looking for it since like literally right before the pandemic, and I had found one on eBay, and I was like, it's kind of expensive. It was $120 US before shipping, but
Whoa.
I have a mailbox in the States, so the shipping wouldn't really have been a problem because they offered free shipping to US residents. So anyways, what ended up happening was the pandemic happened and they shut everything down. I was like, oh, I couldn't find it anywhere in Canada. Then I think it was 2 weeks ago in one of the vinyl groups I'm part of. This guy, he's like, oh, I've got a few sealed copies of this if anyone's interested.
Wow.
Sealed.
And he was listing it for $80, and it normally sells for 100 to 150
Wait, is
Canadian.
it
I was
an
like,
OG or a repress?
it's a repress. It's a colored repress,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
a beautiful pressing. And I was shocked that he had them because I haven't seen anybody in my area have them. And he's like, I think a 10-minute drive from where I am. So I was like, amazing. Like, it just worked out. So I went and picked that up. That record's incredible. I know everyone knows the big singles off that one. But I would argue like Narcolepsy and Graduate. Graduate
yes.
are two of the best songs on the album. I don't know. I feel like this album gets overlooked because at the time it was all about grunge. It was always all about heavier rock at that time. But this record is solid. Probably one of the best 90s records.
Can't agree with you more, man. Narcolepsy. I'm so glad you said Narcolepsy.
Oh, it's one of my favorite
because
songs.
I'm
The tempo
100% with you. Like the hits on this are amazing, but the deep cuts
is where it's at.
They're a really
amazing. I
overlooked
think this
band,
whole-
hey? Like
They really are.
You know, understandably, because there's so many massive acts from the 90s, but they're massively overlooked.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I only know the hits off that album. I'll have to dive in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must.
It's so good. Another one. It's another one. You drop the needle, let it play, flip it over, and do the same.
The excitement is palpable, Matt. You can tell just
Sorry.
how stoked you are to have this album. I'm really happy
It
for
was
you.
funny when I picked it up from the guy. We were chatting a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, this is one of my desert album albums for me." I was
Desert
like, "Yeah,
Island.
for the Desert Island albums." Thank you.
Now you're a fucking mumbling, stuttering little fuck. You know that?
And he's like, I was saying, yeah, like for 90s records, me too. Like it's an absolute monster. And I was like, been looking for this for so long and yada, yada. Anyways, it was nice to chat with him. And
it's hard, right? Like they weren't making them on vinyl a lot in the 90s.
Exactly.
It's this little vacuum between, you know, there's that sort of 20-year vacuum between when they became popular again in the 2010s.
yeah,
95 to 2005.
Matt, did you buy one or two copies of it?
just one. It was $80. I was only getting one.
Okay, so your final choice for the year?
For the
your
year.
favorite album of 2021?
So as we were talking about in the chat, so I was down to 4. We actually had a couple more on my list, but I was like, nope, that came out 2020. That came out in 2020.
Yeah.
And then Dan, you pointed out
I had the
one of
same
my
problem.
selections.
Yeah, me too. 2020 was a banger year. 2021
It
let me
really
tell you.
was. There's a lot of good
20
records that came out.
2021 had a lot of great music though too, guys.
Yes, it did.
Absolutely.
A lot of
That's-
great music.
So for me, ultimately what it came down to is I was really debating between J. Cole's The Off Season and The Killer's Pressure Machine. And I got to give it to J. Cole's The Off Season.
Oh,
What an
yes.
incredible record. If it not only does it deserve a nomination for Hip Hop or Rap Album of the Year, I think it should be in consideration for Album of the Year as well.
Wow.
Wow.
It
Okay.
is so
Big
good.
call.
I can't agree with you more, man. This album, like I listened to it in passing a few months ago, and just kind of, you know, I wasn't really in the headspace to really like listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
But after listening to it again, because I knew what you were gonna, I had to listen to the 4 that you were between just to be able to talk about it for this podcast. But oh my God, the B-side on that album. My Life, Let Go of My Hand,
My Life is
So good.
Climb
it's a
Back,
great track.
Close,
Yeah.
Hunger on Hillside.
Oh, one of my favorite songs.
I like that one. That one stood out to
Let
me.
Go of My
Yeah.
Hand, Let Go of My Hand, A++++.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that record hits home.
So good.
I'm not
so good.
I'm not always in the mood for. I guess this is gangster rap. Certainly
Not
the-
even.
Certainly,
No, I
the,
wouldn't call this gangster
the
rap.
opening track is for sure. 95 South.
It's more so like the hype of Cameron and Lil Jon in the background. The rest of the album doesn't really follow suit.
But My Life,
Yeah.
that track, I was listening to it
so good.
on my drive here to record actually, and that track is amazing.
Yeah. Even the samples on some of the production is so good.
Yeah, it's
There's like a little jazzy inspirations on a couple of them. Oh, it's a great record.
I was hoping that you would choose a hip hop artist
Same.
just because that's your wheelhouse, and I knew we'd get some great recommendations out of it. And I was really thankful, and actually, if I'm honest, a little bit disappointed that you didn't choose John Mayer's Sob Rock because I was ready to unleash. Oh man.
You didn't like it, eh?
Not at all. Not
It was
not remotely. And
I say-
I'm not one of those guys that just doesn't like John Mayer. I think he's an incredible guitarist. But
Agreed.
man, that album, what a soppy hunk of junk.
No way. No way. What is this garbage?
Okay. When you first posted those, I put all your albums just on random.
Yeah.
And John Mayer ones I wasn't skipping because I knew it was John Mayer. So I was like, no, I'm gonna enjoy this. And the first couple songs I was like, yeah, I like this. Okay, easy. John Mayer. He's gonna pick John Mayer. And then by like the third song, I was like,
Nope.
this is trash. What is this?
I disagree.
And
I
was
would
like,
say that the album gets a little softer near the end, but it's more of a top heavy album.
it sounds like he's trying to do the 80s, but he just does it.
It's got an 80s.
It is very 80s.
influence, absolutely.
And the 80s
But
is
it's
popular
just-
at the moment.
But it's
I
just
found it very dull though. Like
he's missed the spark.
on the songs, like the songs on their own were good, and I understand the kind of it being a classically good song, but I just felt like it lacked some salt and pepper, you know.
Yeah, it landed flat.
It's like you're eating steak with no salt.
But
Yeah.
J. Cole, on the other hand, great choice, Matt.
Great
Yeah.
choice.
I
Good
actually,
choice.
I'm gonna have to. We got another one to discuss because after listening to other people's choices today, I was like, I'll save it. I'll save it.
Oh, interesting.
I like this.
So, look, I had a really tough time with 2021, my choice for album of the year. But I'll start off with my vintage and contemporary. My vintage, man, I've bought a lot of albums this year, so it was really hard. And I mostly buy vintage, so this was a really tough choice. But I'm going to go with an album I was just immediately so excited when I saw it at the record store, and that's Aztecs live at Sunbury. So I've talked to you guys about the Aztecs before. They're an Australian band. They're one of the very early examples or predecessors to pub rock, to Aussie pub rock. And live at Sunbury is a really important live performance, live album for them that was recorded from a concert that they did in Australia. And I thought I would never own a copy of this album because I don't love it enough to pay what it's normally worth. And I was in the record store. I trawled through, new arrivals. I did my usual routine, listened to a bunch of stuff, went through all my normal sections and was about to leave with nothing in my hands. And then I walked past the counter, and on the top of this pile of, 100 records or something, there's sitting Aztecs live at Sunbury. And I was like I stopped. I was like, are you selling this? And he said, oh, yeah, I will eventually. But, I just bought it in someone's collection. I haven't priced it. I haven't graded it. All of this. I said, could we grade it and price it now, please?
Nice.
And we pulled it out. We pulled it out, and we agreed. Yeah, it's sort of VG, nearing VG plus. I said, I know this is normally pretty expensive. What do you think it would be going for? And he was like, maybe $60. I said, I'll have to give it a listen because it looks pretty. There's a few scratches on it. It might not play through. Took it to the turntable, gave it a spin, came back, said, you know what, I'm happy. And he said, let's do 40. And I was like,
Oh, what a nice guy.
this is normally like $150 record.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but he saw your passion. I love it. That's why I love record stores.
And I put it on when I got home, and I was like, oh, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's such an dude. Just do yourselves a favor and listen to some Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. That's my message for the end of 2021. So that's my vintage. My contemporary is two, but it's because they're a package deal, and that's Taylor Swift's Folklore and Evermore.
Beautiful.
Some of my favorite albums of the last 5 years, I would say.
Easily.
Me too.
Just so amazing. I love them so much, and I never thought I'd be a Taylor Swift fan.
I can't agree more. I would have never been able to tell you I'd love Taylor Swift. And I'll be honest, the only reason why I got into those records was because of Aaron Dessner.
Yeah.
Big fan of The National.
Totally.
Love everything that they do. And as soon as I heard that he was producing her albums, I was like, well, I'm going to have to take a listen. Bon Iver is a feature on, I forget which one, Folklore or which, either one of them, right? Okay, so on Folklore. And I was like, oh shit, I'm a fan of Taylor Swift now. Like,
I know.
And I've
She's
caught
been having
myself
some good
going
features.
back. I've caught myself going back to some of her earlier stuff. I don't jive with all of it. It's a little bit too poppy, but there's some here and there that I do love. And
we've been listening to those two albums on repeat, and I have to thank my lovely wife for insisting that I listen to these Taylor Swift albums.
amazing.
And you know what? Having them on vinyl, I just feel like they're perfect Sunday afternoon, rainy Sunday spin.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be caught dead saying that. I got into an argument in a group chat today because I sent a picture of me cooking dinner, and there was a Taylor Swift song on, and someone went, "Are you listening to Taylor Swift?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" Of course I'm listening to Taylor Swift.
Oh, dude.
Of course, I'm listening to Tay-Tay.
Yeah, right. And I was like, and then it started how everyone was like, "Well, everyone's jumping on the Taylor Swift bandwagon," sort of thing. And I was like, and they were all,
Yeah, why aren't you on it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're waiting.
Right, but they were all excited. They're like, "I'm glad people are starting to recognize how good she is." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry."
She's been
I can't
good for a
believe
long time.
Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of the hate for Taylor, it's mostly from male listeners, right? That
Yeah.
it's true. Yeah.
don't particularly like female centric pop music, and for whatever reason, right? And I think we're all caught in that kind of having that bias.
It's true. Yeah,
And
I agree.
I'm just glad that I was able to have something that I could jive with, right? Like I just don't particularly like very pop heavy music.
That's why.
neither.
That's why I
which
didn't.
is why
that took me a long
I
time.
never-
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, because of that bias that I had, it made me overlook a lot of those deeper cuts on her big albums, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I've always appreciated that she is a good musician and a good songwriter. I just hadn't.
very good song.
I hadn't vibed with her earlier stuff, but then when this came along, it was kind of like, this is a strange comparison, but it was kind of like not appreciating, knowing that Matthew McConaughey is a good actor, but not appreciating it until he did True Detective.
Fair enough.
Oh,
Fair enough.
wow! It took you that long?
Well,
It
wasn't
like,
10 Things I Hate About
I don't
You?
like rom-coms.
Or no,
okay,
that's
Chris?
not the one. It's
Oh,
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yo, right there, it sealed the deal.
So
Yeah, I honestly think she's one of those. Her deep tracks are where it's at. I always prefer her deep tracks as opposed to her singles. There's the odd one that I really do jive with, but most of it's all the deep tracks on the album.
Amazing. Yeah.
no, that's great.
I would agree.
Look, as I said, 2021, I've really struggled with new music. Chris, I know you've spoken about this earlier this year. I just haven't been in the mood to explore a lot of music, and it has been a struggle, but I really tried to do a deep dive for this chat, and I would say I probably narrowed it down to 10 to 20 albums that I thought I needed to listen to in depth to get to this point. And the one I kept coming back to is one that Dan actually introduced me to, which is St. Vincent, Daddy's Home. That's, for me,
Great record.
that's my favorite album of the year.
Such a good album. It's
And
very,
so good.
very strong.
It feels kind of like a cop-out because it could have been released in the 70s.
It had a very psychedelic vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
didn't
found
get-
it to be very prog rock,
Yeah.
prog rock in the front and then funky in the back.
Really funky, really psychedelic. It's psychedelia and like lounge pop, I think it's been referred to as. But look, it was recorded at Electric Ladyland Studios, which is appropriate given that those vibes. I got really bit of Hendrix, a bit of Prince from it.
Oh yeah, Prince is a great reference.
But
Yeah,
man,
Prince,
I loved it. I keep listening to it. Like I've listened to it maybe 5 times this week.
Wow.
Like it's
really good.
Yeah. And I'd never heard of her. I'd heard of her, but had never listened to her.
You got to listen to her self-titled album.
Yeah,
That's
you got to go back to her older stuff.
Yeah, I got to do a
too.
deeper dive for sure. But
she's been around for like 20 years,
I know,
right?
it's
Like
crazy.
she used to be in Sufjan Stevens' backing band.
Yeah.
Before she went and did her
around.
own solo stuff.
But what I took from this year, in terms of it's really interesting how music is cyclical, right? Because and the decades are kind of all crammed together. Like the 70s is back at the moment, the 80s is back big time at the moment.
Big time.
90s,
Huge, especially in
90s is back big time at the moment. But what was most in vogue, what I thought was most in vogue from listening to a lot of stuff from 2021 was like synth pop or dream pop, I guess you would call
Dream
it.
pop.
Like even King Giz releasing that Butterfly 3000, which I shortlisted just because it's King Giz, but it didn't, it wasn't.
I thought you were gonna pick. I
Yeah.
thought that was up there for you.
But that, it's a really big year for dream pop, which is, it's cool. It's light. I enjoy it.
I can't do it. Like the only time I tried to listen to it, and I tried like to go into St. Vincent to see if anything else jumped out. And the only song that really jumped out for me was Daddy's Home on this because it was weird and interesting and kind of complex, but nothing else stuck with me.
Really?
And I was like,
not even, man, that opening track,
That's surprising to
Pay
me,
Your Way in
guys.
Pain. I love it.
Chris, so
really give it a listen, man.
do you know what? And do you know what? I'm gonna argue. I tried, but all I keep getting stuck in my head is, and this is my own bias, I get Emily Haynes. I can hear Emily Haynes kind of in the way she's singing in her voice, and then I just want to go listen to an Emily Haynes album, and I'm just like, and I can't get over that. So I think I need to somehow disconnect with that, and I'm struggling right now with that. And that's my own fault. Maybe I'm on an Emily Haynes kick, but there we go.
That could be. I was gonna say you really gotta dive back into her older stuff, Chris, because I know you like a little bit of weird and stuff. I feel like she's right up your alley, and she's an incredible guitar player, probably one of the best I've ever seen.
That's actually what drew me to this album the
Matt.
most.
Yeah, when I went to go see her live for her last album, I just stared at her and watched her play. I was like, oh my God, she can shred.
Right on.
Like, she was so good.
She actually has a line of female-specific guitars.
Oh, that's
so
sweet.
They fit a lot nicer for female contours. So shout out to St. Vincent for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you know what?
100%.
But Chris, I just have to make one comment. Like
Sure.
I know you were busy and you're trying to listen to all of our choices, to get into this. But having put all of our albums on random, to have all the songs pop in randomly, big mistake.
No, I didn't. Sorry. I listened to the the first album, and then I put on Daddy's Home full, but I kept skipping. But that was, again, I couldn't get over that. So there we go. But yes, I
if
will.
You got
New
to
year,
give
new
the
year,
melting,
new Chris. There we go.
the melting of the sun. Somebody Like Me, man. A+++ songs.
So good.
So yeah, do yourself a favor.
Okay, Dan, what do we got? Hit us.
Okay, so for myself, this had been 10 years since I went on a dig.
Crazy.
And so I got back into record collecting because of this group.
Awesome.
That April month challenge that Chris proposed and basically connected us to Matt, which is, I'm so thankful for, right? Like that was such an incredible month sharing all that stuff with you guys.
That was so much fun.
I have to thank you guys for what an incredible a year to have this chat going consistently to talk about music. And I've learned and I've discovered a lot of new music this year that I've been overlooking, especially from the pub rock scene, right? And so thank you for that. But for me, digging, right? So it all started when Chris had talked about Dan Mangan had put out his 10-year deluxe. And so I went onto Arts and Crafts website and I just bought a few records. So I bought a Broken Social Scene record, that Dan Mangan album, Sarah Harmer record, but had to buy what I would have picked as my favorite 2020 record at the time, which was Andy Schaaf's The Neon Skyline.
So good.
I love that album so much. I was in his top 0.01% of listeners in 2020 because I would legit play that front to back over and over and over again. I learned, I think, at least 80% of the songs on guitar.
So you're on the fixated persons list for Andy Schaaf.
Oh, big time, big time. I was really mad I wasn't his top listener.
Wait, is that a thing?
It is, yeah.
If you're the top listener, it tells you.
Someone was Kanye's top listener and posted it on.
Was it Kanye?
Oh, come on.
It was Kanye. It was definitely Kanye.
It was Kanye, yeah. 100%. Anyway, so I love that record. Later on in the year, I had to give a shout out to another fantastic 2020 album before I get into my 2021 picks. This could have easily have won if it was released in 2021 because I listened to it mostly this year, but it was Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. I don't know why I would never listen to her stuff. Alina had recommended to me tons of times, and I just kept overlooking it. But finally, I listened to it, and I just connected with it right away. Garden Song it's one of my favorite songs. Like I always go back to it. It was my most listened song this year. And so I'd like to shout out, I had to shout out that record because it's just so beautiful. And everyone has to listen to that. If you're a fan of kind of, I forget what they're calling it. They're calling it, I think it was like scary folk or like it was like such a weird genre. Anyways,
genre.
So I have to shout that out. Okay, so
Nice.
vintage copy again. I bought so many records this year. So as I was starting to I went and had my first purchase online through the Arts and Crafts website, and then finally when things opened up, I went for a dig with my buddy Matt. So shout out to Matt for suggesting we go on a bit of a vinyl hunt. And so as I was hunting, one day I went to Cops. Shout out to Cops again. It's the record store that I'll continuously
Dan
go
Lozier
to.
is brought to you by Cops Records.
Yeah,
He's wearing a
Cops
shirt.
Records.
He's wearing a cop shirt right now.
So I just finished a dig. So I've been mostly trying to grow my jazz collection, and I found a lot of great jazz records that I could easily have picked for this, but I definitely want to save them for an episode because they're really, really great albums, and I definitely want to kind of push more jazz records into collectors' minds because I find that they often get overlooked. But as I was walking out after purchasing a handful of records, Cops is great because they have a section in the front they're called value records, and then there's records mixed into different genres, right? And what they do with the value records is they rotate them between the 3 locations to try to dump them off. And if they've done a full rotation, then they drop the price by a couple dollars and to try to get rid of them. Right on the front of the stack is Closing Time by Tom Waits.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Nice.
It was under $20.
That's awesome.
I didn't even hesitate. I grab it, go right to the counter, drop it on it. It's easily my favorite Tom Waits album.
It's such a good album.
Yeah, I mean, I was introduced to that album by my cousin Matt, and the way I was introduced to it, he does an amazing cover of I Hope I Don't Fall in Love with You.
Yeah, that's the track.
Which is such a good song. Like, it's such a good song. Like, the way he sits in the bar and he talks about how he hopes he doesn't fall in love with this person he's just met, and then at the end it's like, and I think I just fell in love with you is the last line of the song.
And just the emotion
so
that
perfect.
Tom Waits conveys through his voice. Like,
oh yeah.
God, I love Tom Waits.
So that was my favorite vintage copy purchase just because of how, I'd already bought a bunch of records. I was about to walk out and I finally see this. And so I was like, oh my God, I found the one that I've been looking for. Okay. And then
Album
favorite
of the
album of the
year.
year.
What do we got?
This one was kind of tough for me. I was hung up on an album by Claro.
Yeah, you sent me that.
All year. It's very folky driven, and it's something that I just vibed with. There's a few songs on that album that I really loved, but then it came down to 2 albums. So my friend Frankie, he out of the blue just asked me if I loved War on Drugs, and I was like, I love the band. He's like, oh, they just released a new album. Check out this song. And the title track, I Don't Live Here Anymore, was the song that he posted. I was like, oh shit, this is really good. And then I went into the album and I was like, oh my God, this is an incredible album. And so I was loving this album from front to back for a few weeks. And then all of a sudden, this album by Snail Mail came out called Valentine. And I started loving this album too. And it was very hard for me to pick, right? Like,
the suspense is killing me.
What is just tell us, man.
It's really hard. It's really hard for me to pick, but I gotta go with War on Drugs.
Yes.
I think that album is unbelievable.
Thank you.
There are so many good songs on that album. Change, I think, is perfect. Rings Around My Father's Eyes is such a beautiful tune. It gives me Allman Brothers vibes. Allman Brothers vibes.
Strong
Allman
Dylan
Brothers,
vibes throughout. Mm-hmm. And Grateful Dead. I got some real Grateful Dead vibes.
A lot of 80s.
He makes a reference. He makes a reference to Bob Dylan in the song Change.
Mm-hmm. I got like
and then Occasional Rain, I think, is the best song in the album, and it closes it out. So
I got some like shoegaze kind of feels. It like mixed in.
Where I was like shoegaze.
I don't though, but they did it well. They did what John Mayer tried to do and failed so miserably at. They got all those sounds.
Yeah, they took a lot of that 80s vibe and threw it into that record. At points I was like, whoa, I think it was on Change, the intro to Change. As soon as I heard the percussion, I was like, are we about to get a Phil Collins cover? It honestly sounded like In the Air Tonight. I was like, oh my God. And then the next track comes. I'm like, what did it remind me of? Oh my God. It'll come to me later. Anyways, all these different 80 inspirations kept coming to my mind. And I was like, oh my God, this has such a throwback to the 80s. It had such a great vibe to it. I love this record through and through. I don't know how it got past me. And Dan, honestly, I'm so glad you brought it up today because I listened to that in Snail Mail, and both of them loved both records.
Yeah.
And Snail Mail actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Birdie.
Interesting.
Had I listened to it earlier and played it more through and through, this probably would have taken the #1 rock selection for me.
Wow. To get that from Matt too, that's amazing.
Thank you for bringing this up.
I am in the same boat. If I had listened to this before this week, I think it would have been my album of the year as well. But I was so fixated on Daddy's Home at this point that I just had to back it in.
That's amazing. That's awesome, guys.
So I wouldn't go that far, but it did make me. Because then I was listening to a couple and it jumped into my playlist and it made me hate the John Mayer album because I was like, they just did it so much better. And I was just so impressed with like the whole way it came together. So yeah, it's definitely up there. And I wasn't a War on Drugs fan. And this, I was like, yep, like
it's
right
different.
away.
It's a different tone. I mean, for me, like I made this joke to my friend where it was like, the pandemic, man, I'm sure a lot of people were facing some depression, and I always called depression art crack. Mm-hmm. So there's some really strong albums that have come out in the last 2 years. And I think if you guys go to give this thing another listen, just try to focus on the imagery and the motifs that he plays on, like the motifs of change and rain in the sense of bringing on dreariness, but also to wash things away. And so just give it another listen. I've listened to this album many, many times. So yeah, I'm glad you guys loved it.
What a way to start the new year, right? Washing away, starting new.
Washing away 2021. That's that's a wrap on 2021. It's been an absolute pleasure, gents, sharing this music journey this year. and sort of discovering what this podcast was going to be about. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to all of our listeners. Make sure you get out there, share this passion of music, explore new music. Hit us up. We're always available online. Hit us on the Instagram at Create Expectations Pod. Send us some fan mail, createexpectationspod@gmail.com. Check out Matt's blog, createexpectationspod.com. Until next time, in 2022, keep digging and spinning.
Peace.
Cheers.
The Groovy Guys are Tom Kennedy, Dan Lozier, Chris Palumbo, and Matt Carvalho. With your host, Tom Kennedy. Music by Dan Lozier, post-production by Matt, and album art by Chris.
Groovy!